Hello everyone, welcome. It's a new day, and we already have new critical reports to get through, and one of them signals massive changes ahead. The heads of state for the European Union members have apparently agreed to introduce an age threshold for social media. And get this, they are already testing software solutions for age verification right now. A prototype app is supposedly on the way to check a user's age. Now, the big questions, like what the exact age limits will be and how this verification will actually work, well, those remain open. They promise to announce it all later, but for now, the report claims the disagreements on this issue are gone. I used to work on the inside in one of those huge, well-known media organizations. I saw firsthand how they shape and twist stories to fit the approved narrative. I couldn't do it, so I walked away. Now I'm independent, I answer to you, and I'm here to tell you what's really going on beneath the headlines. And if you appreciate that, if you value this independent perspective, please take a second to click that like button and subscribe to the channel. And maybe even consider becoming a channel sponsor. It's that support that truly keeps this operation going, and I am deeply grateful for it. Back to the EU. The head of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, admitted her inspiration for these age limits came from an Australian law that bans social media for anyone under 16. Von der Leyen also announced her intention to collaborate with Australia. She emphasized, "We in Europe are watching you and will learn from you." Then we have this. Belgium has reportedly blocked the European Community's plan to grant a €140 billion loan to Ukraine, a loan that was supposed to be funded using frozen Russian assets. What happened? At the EU Leaders Summit, Belgian Prime Minister Bart de Wever explained that if these frozen assets, most of which are held in the central depository in Brussels, are used, then the EU member states must share the responsibility and provide guarantees. He asked with clear frustration, who will give these guarantees? The member states? That was his question after the summit ended. He pointed out that the European Commission cannot force member states to sign guarantees. But the main fear, as they explain it, is the potential for retaliatory measures. The outlet Politico, which we all know, summed it up bluntly. It's a complete mess. One diplomat was quoted saying, "Everything was supposed to fold differently, but it hasn't." And this report apparently angered the Belgian Prime Minister, who was furious that Politico put him in the same category as Orbán, Fico, and Merz. Can you imagine? He literally fumed, "I'm the bad guy?" Then, as if to calm himself down, De Wever concluded, "I'm not the bad guy. We are the best." Meanwhile, over in Germany, against the backdrop of growing fears about, well, possible challenges, the demand for private shelters has skyrocketed. And now the retail market is jumping in. The first home bunker has appeared for sale. It's a compact protected module that, as they report, you'll soon be able to see right in the garden department of a store. Think about that for a second. This bunker is 16 square meters, made of steel-reinforced concrete with 20-centimeter thick walls. Inside, it has everything needed for a week of autonomous living. 4 folding beds, a toilet, a shower, a mini kitchen, and even a screen that simulates a view from a window. The lighting is adjustable for color and brightness. And the price? The home bunker starts at €50,000 for a basic model and goes up to €150,000 for the fully loaded, all-inclusive, completely packed version. While that's happening, relations between Germany and China have apparently deteriorated, worse than ever. The head of the German Foreign Ministry, Johann Wadephul, cancelled his trip to Beijing. Why? Because Chinese officials are refusing to meet with him. The visit, scheduled for October 26th, suddenly collapsed. Everyone is in shock. The official reason? They simply couldn't find anyone for him to talk to in Beijing. What a turn of events. A representative from the German Foreign Ministry later stated the trip was postponed indefinitely, as the Chinese side had not confirmed a single meeting. Berlin isn't hiding its disappointment, especially since the two sides have a mountain of topics to discuss, from restrictions on rare earth elements and semiconductors, which you know are crippling German industry, to political disagreements over Taiwan. Perhaps, instead of a visit, the ministers will just settle for a phone call. Perhaps. And right on cue, we have to add this new, heavily discussed report coming from Annalena Baerbock. Now, according to this report, she is currently the president of the General Assembly of the United Nations, and she is in high gear, criticizing and expressing outrage that not a single woman has ever become the UN Secretary General. As we know, Antonio Guterres, the current Secretary General, sees his term expire at the end of 2026. So, Annalena Baerbock is calling to appoint a woman to this post, and the clear implication is naturally herself. And right now, despite what the report calls limited powers as President of the General Assembly, Annalena intends to initiate reform of the UN Security Council. For example, Baerbock is proposing that countries applying their veto power must be required to publicly explain their actions to everyone. Justify why you are using the veto. That's what Baerbock wants to achieve. In short, a woman should be in Guterres' place to bring full order, as the current model of the organization is outdated and needs revision. Also today, another message. The German government is sounding the alarm over the spread of bird flu. The number of cases in the country has been rising extremely fast over the last 2 weeks. Due to these outbreaks, the Minister of Agriculture, Alois Rainer, has already called for strengthening protective measures to the maximum to contain this. The Ministry of Agriculture also appealed to the EU leadership, asking them to raise the compensation limit for valuable animals that will have to be put down. This is to support the farmers because their situation is incredibly difficult and the compensation from the EU fund for animal diseases is usually just based on market value. And here's a quick reminder. If you're finding this analysis valuable, please hit that like button and subscribe. It really does help the channel cut through the noise. Now, look at this. The Premier of Bavaria, Söder, has again openly expressed his dissatisfaction and called on the European Union to limit the entry of young Ukrainian men. Söder believes that young men from Ukraine should stay home and defend their country, not come to Germany. This comes after an August 28th decision that allowed Ukrainian men aged 18 to 22 to leave their country freely. And where are most of them going? To Germany. This is why the Bavarian premier is getting louder and more frequent with his complaints. At the exact same time, but now in France, the crises are just getting worse in multiple directions. The Socialists are once again threatening to oust the government, this time over tense budget negotiations. It was announced today they will file a vote of no confidence early next week unless the billionaires are forced to pay more. The leader of the French Socialist Party, Olivier Faure, said they made maximum efforts to avoid this no-confidence vote, but they see no signs of readiness for compromise from the government. Therefore, he said, if nothing changes by Monday, it's over. Just like that, cut and dry. He and his party have long advocated for introducing a tax on billionaires, stating that the current budget document unfairly hits pensioners, young people and families, just ordinary people, while the fat cats remain untouched. So, we're heading for an intriguing showdown to see what they ultimately decide. Also, the clocks are about to change as we switch to winter time. And as you know, the number of opponents to this transition is growing rapidly. Experts in the European news decided to clarify for everyone that the transition to wintertime actually has fewer consequences for the body than the transition to summertime. Every year, when the clocks are turned back in October, many people rejoice at the extra hour of sleep. So, there are pluses, although there is a minus. The shift does disrupt our rhythm. That 24-hour natural mechanism in our body, the one that regulates sleep, concentration, hormone production, and mood, gets disrupted. But, they explain, the autumn transition is still much milder than the spring one, so I guess we rejoice that we'll sleep an hour longer. As for new reports from the United States, Donald Trump has announced that Americans, in his opinion, incredibly well, received his decision to rename the Department of Defense to the Department of War. President Trump also noted that at first he considered the decision controversial. However, according to him, those fears were not confirmed. And, as he has before, Donald Trump stressed again that the United States won the First World War and the Second World War. Everything before it and everything between, they won. But subsequently, another policy came into the country, and the department got the name Defense. But people want our country back, Trump emphasizes. People want to do exactly what we are doing. What is he doing? We are getting a lot of recognition for this, and deservedly so. That was the loud conclusion voiced by Donald Trump. The American president also created intrigue again, stating that everyone will be very surprised when they find out who paid the protesters at the rallies titled No King. He said paid, past tense. He added, protesters are going crazy because they get money for participating in rallies, and some of them are professional instigators. They are hired. A little earlier, mind you, Donald Trump had stated that they were checking the possible involvement of the well-known oligarch George in organizing these No Kings protests. So, we wait to see who is named, who is behind these protests, and how they will be punished. So let's just quickly recap what we're seeing today. The EU is pushing ahead with social media age verification, while simultaneously being blocked by Belgium on using Russian assets for Ukraine loans. Germany is seeing a boom in literal backyard bunkers, while its diplomatic relations with China collapse and its domestic politics are fraught over bird flu and Ukrainian refugees. France is on the verge of a government collapse over taxing the rich. And in the US, Trump is doubling down on the Department of War and promising reveals on who funded protests. These are the informational moments right now, and they certainly speak volumes. I want to hear your opinion on all of this. What do you think about everything that is happening? And if you believe this kind of independent analysis is important, please click that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, and truly, if you're able, consider becoming a sponsor. That support is what allows me to sit here and do this work every single day, free from any corporate agenda. Thank you for that. I'll be tracking these developments, and I'll be back tomorrow.